The smell hit me before I even stepped fully into the dining room. Red wine. Cheap. Sharp. The kind my wife, Margaret, used to say tasted like vinegar left in the sun. I paused at the doorway at exactly 8:57 p.m. The chandelier above the table cast a yellow light that made everything look warmer than it was. 8 people sat around the table. 8 glasses already half empty. Jason sat at the head like he owned the house. He didn't. Not really. Not yet. Robert, he said without looking up, swirling his glass in slow circles. You're late. I checked my watch. 8:57 p.m. again. The second hand ticked forward like it always had. Margaret gave it to me in 2009. Silver. Thin strap. She said it made me look less like an accountant. I stepped in. The hardwood floor felt colder than it should have. The air conditioner hummed at 68 degrees. Too cold for dinner. Too cold for comfort. Traffic, I said. My voice came out steady. That surprised me. Emily didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on her plate. Chicken untouched. Green beans lined up like she had arranged them minutes ago. Doesn't matter, Jason said. What matters is we're waiting. He finally looked at me then. Smiled. Not warm. Not polite. Something else. Something rehearsed. Grab the bottle, he added. Top everyone off. I stood there for a second. Just a second. Long enough to feel the weight of every eye in that room. 8 people. None of them spoke. None of them moved. The sound of the ice in someone's glass shifted as it melted. Small. Sharp. I moved to the counter. The bottle was already open. Half gone. I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected. Or maybe my hand was slower than usual. I poured into the first glass. Then the second. Then the third. Each pour measured. Exact. 42 years in finance teaches you precision. Even with wine. Fill it properly, Jason said. Don't be stingy. I filled it higher. Almost to the rim. A drop slipped over the edge and landed on the white tablecloth. Bright red. It spread slowly. I remembered Margaret again. 2016, our anniversary dinner. She wore a blue dress that smelled like lavender. I spilled wine that night too. She laughed. Took the napkin. Dabbed it clean before it could stain. Said, You always rush things, Robert. I didn't rush now. I finished the last glass. Set the bottle down carefully. No sound. No clink. Nothing that could be called careless. Good, Jason said. He leaned back in his chair. Crossed his arms. Now sit. No. Actually, wait. I froze where I was. He pointed to the sideboard. Bring the plates out first. Let's make this easier for everyone. Emily shifted slightly. I noticed that. Just a movement of her shoulders. Nothing more. She still didn't look at me. I walked to the sideboard. For plates stacked. Warm. I could feel the heat through the ceramic. The smell of butter and garlic hung in the air. Too rich. Too heavy. I carried them over. Set them down one by one. No one thanked me. No one spoke. The hum of the air conditioner got louder. Or maybe everything else just got quieter. This was deliberate. I could see that now. Not an accident. Not a moment. A plan. Something that had been building for months. Maybe longer. I had seen the signs. The way Jason spoke over me. The way Emily stopped correcting him. The way decisions were made before I was told. I had let it slide. I had told myself it was temporary. That families go through phases. That things settle. They don't. Not like this. You missed a spot, Jason said suddenly. I looked down. Another drop of wine. Smaller this time. Near the edge of the table. I reached for a napkin. My hand brushed the glass beside it. It tipped. Just enough. The red liquid spilled across the tablecloth in a slow, spreading wave. It reached the plate. Touched the edge of the silverware. Jesus, someone muttered. Jason stood up immediately. His chair scraped against the floor. Loud. Sharp. Final. Unbelievable, he said. He looked at the stain. Then at me. You can't even do this right. I held the napkin in my hand. Didn't move yet. The room felt colder. The light harsher. Everything sharper. I could hear my own breathing. Slow. Controlled. I had handled accounts worth $12.4 million without blinking. I had managed audits that lasted 6 months and 3 days. I had solved problems that could bankrupt companies. This was simpler. Much simpler. But it mattered more. Clean it, Jason said. His voice dropped. Quieter now. More controlled. That made it worse. Or maybe, you'd rather just stand there. I bent slightly. Dabbed the stain. The fabric soaked it in. The red spread wider before it faded. I knew that would happen. You never rub. You dab. Margaret taught me that. I could feel something tightening in my chest. Not panic. Not anger. Something else. Recognition. This was the line. Not the wine. Not the plates. The expectation. The assumption. The quiet agreement in the room that this was acceptable. That I was acceptable like this. I straightened up slowly. Looked at Emily. She still didn't meet my eyes. That told me everything I needed to know. I had already prepared for this. 6 months ago. Quietly. Methodically. 3 documents. 2 accounts. 1 transfer waiting for the right moment. I had hoped I wouldn't need it. I was wrong. Robert, Jason said again. He stepped closer now. Close enough that I could smell the wine on his breath. Close enough that his voice didn't need to rise. You have 2 options. He paused. Let it sit in the air. Let everyone feel it. You either serve properly in this house. He gestured around the room. At the table. At the people. At himself. Or you leave. Silence followed. Heavy. Complete. No one interrupted. No one objected. I looked at the watch on my wrist. 9:12 p.m. The second hand moved forward again. I set the napkin down carefully. My hand didn't shake. Not anymore. I picked up my suitcase from the hallway. It had been there since 3 p.m. packed. Ready. I walked back into the room. Stood exactly where I had been before. Jason watched me. His expression shifted. Just slightly. Confusion. Maybe curiosity. I met his eyes for the first time that night. Really met them. Then I smiled. Small. Controlled. The way Margaret used to say meant I had already decided something important. I turned toward the door. My hand reached for the handle. Behind me, a chair moved suddenly, and Emily's voice broke through the silence, sharp and unexpected. Dad, what did you just do? I stepped outside into the night air, and the door closed behind me with a soft click. The sound was quieter than I expected, final in a way that felt deliberate. The driveway stretched about 42 feet to the street. The porch light flickered once above me. It cast a pale circle on the concrete. My car sat at the edge. A 2016 Lincoln Continental. Clean. Still. Waiting. The air smelled faintly of cut grass and something chemical from the neighbor's yard. The temperature had dropped to around 61 degrees. Cooler than inside. I could still hear muffled voices behind the door. Low. Indistinct. Then nothing. Silence settled in. I adjusted my grip on the suitcase. It weighed about 28 pounds. I had measured it earlier. Old habits. I moved toward the car slowly. Each step felt measured. Intentional. Gravel shifted under my shoes. Small crunching sounds. I reached the driver's door and paused. The metal felt cold under my hand. I looked back once. The house stood still. Lights glowing through the windows. 8 shadows moving inside. I did not belong there anymore. That realization settled cleanly. Without resistance. I opened the door and placed the suitcase in the back seat. The leather inside carried a faint scent. Clean. Slightly sweet. Like polish in time. I sat down and closed the door. The interior sealed off the outside noise completely. Quiet. Controlled. The dashboard clock read 9:14 p.m. 2 minutes since I stepped out. I placed both hands on the steering wheel. It felt solid. Familiar. Grounding. I did not start the engine yet. I let the silence stay. This was the moment I had anticipated. Not hoped for. Anticipated. 6 months of quiet preparation led to this exact point. No more waiting. No more guessing. I reached into the center console and pulled out a folded document. One of 3. I had signed them earlier at 3:07 p.m. The ink had dried hours ago. I ran my thumb across the edge of the paper. Smooth. Precise. Legal. I remembered someone else then. Not Margaret. Not Emily. Someone older in my memory. Daniel Pierce. My supervisor in 1998. Age 54 at the time. He had a habit of tapping his pen twice before signing anything important. The sound was sharp. Deliberate. He once told me in his office. The room smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. He said, never sign anything unless you already know the outcome. I had followed that rule for 42 years. Tonight was no different. I unfolded the document fully. The language was clear. Asset transfer authorization. Effective immediately upon execution. I had prepared it 3 years ago. In 2023. Quietly. Without discussion. Without announcement. That decision felt extreme. At the time. It felt necessary now. I placed the document back down and exhaled slowly. This was no longer about emotion. This was about structure. Control had shifted. Permanently. They believed I was reacting. I was not. I had already acted. They believed they had leverage. They did not. I had removed it before they even asked. That changed everything. I reached for my phone. The screen lit up instantly. 9:16 p.m. I opened the banking app. The interface looked the same as always. Clean, neutral, indifferent. I selected the account. Joint account balance displayed clearly. $12,407,882.13. I studied the number for a moment. Years of accumulation. Years of discipline. Numbers did not lie. They simply reflected decisions. I pressed transfer. The secondary account was already preloaded. Private trust holding. Established June 2023. I entered the full amount. No hesitation. No adjustment. My finger hovered for less than 1 second. Then I confirmed. The system processed immediately. No delay. No warning. Just a brief loading icon. Then it was done. Balance, $0. I watched it update in real time. Clean. Absolute. Final. I felt something release inside my chest. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Alignment. The plan had moved from theory to reality. I locked the screen and set the phone down. The engine started with a low hum as I pressed the ignition. The vibration settled through the seat. Steady. Predictable. I shifted into drive, but did not move yet. I checked the mirrors out of habit. Empty street. No movement. No witnesses. I adjusted the rearview mirror slightly. My reflection looked the same. Maybe older. Maybe clearer. I thought about Emily again. Not the silence at the table. Not tonight. Earlier. Years ago. When she was 12. When she used to run down the driveway at 4:30 p.m. after school. Backpack bouncing. Calling my name before she even reached the door. That memory felt distant. Not gone. Just buried under years of compromise. I understood something then. This was not just about Jason. It was about what had been allowed to grow unchecked. What had been tolerated. What had been mistaken for temporary. It was never temporary. I placed the car into motion. Slow. Controlled. The tires rolled over the driveway edge. Onto the street. The house began to shrink in the rearview mirror. Smaller with each second. Less defined. Less important. I drove exactly 0.3 miles before. Stopping at the corner. A stop sign. Red. Reflective. I waited there for a full 3 seconds. Longer than necessary. Then I turned right. As I accelerated, my phone vibrated once on the console. A short, sharp buzz. I did not reach for it immediately. I let it sit. The road ahead stretched empty. Streetlights spaced about 60 feet apart, each one casting a pool of light. I drove through one. Then another. Then another. The phone buzzed again. This time longer. More insistent. I picked it up and glanced down briefly. A notification from the bank. White text on a dark background. Clear. Unmistakable. Joint account holder Jason Caldwell has initiated an emergency access request at 9:18 p.m. The fluorescent lights inside the gas station hummed above me as I stepped in at 9:21 p.m. The air smelled like burnt coffee and stale sugar. A low refrigeration unit buzzed near the back wall. Cold air drifted across the floor. I placed my phone face down on the counter for a second. The clerk glanced up briefly. Mid-30s. Tired eyes. Blue uniform slightly wrinkled. Evening, he said. His voice was flat. Automatic. Coffee's fresh. Made it 20 minutes ago. I nodded once. Moved toward the machine. The metal handle felt sticky. I poured slowly. Dark liquid filled the cup halfway. I did not need more. The smell was sharp. Bitter. Familiar in a way that grounded me. I added no sugar. No cream. I paid in cash. $2.14. Exact change. Coins counted without looking. 42 years builds habits like that. Receipt, he asked. I shook my head. No. I took the cup and moved to the window. Outside, the streetlights flickered against the glass. Cars passed every 30 seconds. Headlights sweeping across the pavement. I picked up my phone again. The notification was still there. Emergency access request. Jason had moved faster than I expected. That mattered. Speed meant panic. Panic meant mistakes. I unlocked the screen again. Checked the time. 9:23 p.m. 2 minutes since the alert. He was already trying to reverse something he did not understand. I opened a second application. Legal Access Dashboard. The trust interface. It required 2 layers of authentication. I entered both without hesitation. The system loaded within 3 seconds. Clean interface. White background. Black text. No emotion. No bias. Just structure. I navigated to account permissions. Jason's name appeared under joint access. Status, suspended. Temporary. That was expected. I had set it that way months ago. A precaution. A delay mechanism. I tapped further. Additional controls opened. One option remained inactive. Permanent revocation. I paused there. Not long. Just enough to confirm the sequence. Once executed, it could not be reversed. Not by me. Not by anyone. That was the point. I lowered the phone slightly. Took a small sip of the coffee. It tasted worse than it smelled. Burnt. Over-extracted. I swallowed anyway. I remembered another night. Not Margaret. Not Daniel. Someone else. Kevin Harper. 2007. Age 39. We worked together during an audit in Chicago. The office was cold. Always 65 degrees. The carpet smelled like dust and cleaning chemicals. Kevin used to drink coffee like this. Black. Bitter. He once told me during a late shift at 11:48 p.m., if it tastes bad, it keeps you honest. I had laughed then. I did not laugh now. I stared at the screen again. This was not about punishment. Not really. It was about boundaries. Lines that had been ignored too many times. Lines that needed to exist in absolute terms. I considered Emily again. Not as she was tonight. Silent. Distant. But as she had been before. The version of her that asked questions. That challenged things. That trusted me to answer. That version had been replaced slowly. Quietly. Over years I had allowed to pass without interruption. I understood something clearly now. This was not a sudden shift. It was the result of repeated inaction. Mine. I had chosen patience when I should have chosen clarity. I had chosen peace when I should have chosen structure. That ended tonight. I lifted the phone again. My thumb hovered over the final option. Permanent revocation. My breathing stayed steady. My hand did not shake. The fluorescent lights above me flickered once. A brief dip in brightness. Then stable again. The refrigeration unit hummed louder for a second, then returned to its normal rhythm. Everything around me continued as if nothing had changed. That was the nature of this kind of decision. The world does not react. It simply absorbs. I pressed the option. A confirmation screen appeared immediately. Clear warning. Irreversible action. Final authority required. I read it once. Not twice. Once was enough. I confirmed. The system processed within 2 seconds. Status updated. Jason Caldwell. Access permanently revoked. I locked the phone and set it down beside the coffee. I did not check for additional alerts. I did not wait for a response. That was not necessary anymore. I picked up the cup and took one more sip. Still bitter. Still unpleasant. Still effective. I turned toward the door and walked out. The night air felt colder now. Maybe 58 degrees. The parking lot stretched empty except for one pickup truck about 20 feet away. Its engine idled softly. I walked to my car. Opened the door. Sat down. The interior felt warmer than before. The leather had adjusted. The engine started immediately when I pressed the button. I shifted into drive without hesitation. No pause this time. No looking back. The tires rolled forward. Smooth. Controlled. I pulled out of the lot and onto the road. The gas station lights faded behind me quickly. The road ahead opened. Dark. Clear. Uninterrupted. I accelerated slightly. 35 miles per hour. Then 45. Then steady at 50. The phone remained on the console. Silent now. No new notifications. No new attempts. That told me everything. The system had locked him out completely. There would be no second request. No workaround. No negotiation. This was finished. I drove past 3 intersections. Each one empty. Each one offering a chance to turn back. I did not take any of them. I kept moving forward. At exactly 9:31 p.m., I reached the highway entrance ramp. The sign reflected in my headlights. Green. Familiar. Final. I pressed the accelerator and merged into traffic without slowing down. The motel room smelled like detergent and something faintly metallic as I pushed the door open at 9:52 p.m. The air inside felt warmer than outside. Around 72 degrees. A low hum came from the wall unit. The fluorescent bathroom light leaked under the door in a thin strip. I stepped in slowly. Closed the door behind me with a soft click. The carpet felt rough under my shoes. Worn in places. Clean enough. Functional. I set my suitcase down near the bed. The mattress dipped slightly when I pressed it with my hand. Firm. Cheap. Predictable. I stood there for a moment. Let the silence settle again. Different silence than the car. This one felt contained. Structured. I placed my phone on the small wooden desk. The surface smelled faintly like polish. Old. Chemical. I loosened my collar. The fabric felt tight against my neck. I had not noticed it before. I exhaled slowly. Then I remembered something else. Not Margaret. Not Daniel. Not Kevin. Someone closer to this situation. Jason Caldwell. 2005. Age 29. The first time he came to my house. He shook my hand too firmly. His palm was dry. His grip lasted 1 second too long. I remember the smell of cologne. Strong. Synthetic. Overcompensating. He looked at everything in the room like he was measuring it. Not admiring it. Measuring it. I had noticed that then. I did not act on it. I told myself I was being overly analytical. I was not. I sat down on the edge of the bed. The springs creaked slightly. The sound echoed in the room. I leaned forward and placed my elbows on my knees. The clock on the wall read 9:55 p.m. 3 minutes had passed since I entered. It felt longer. Time stretched differently tonight. I picked up my phone again. No new alerts. That was expected. Jason had lost access completely. There would be no second attempt. The system would not allow it. That was the structure I built. That was the point. I stood up and walked to the window. Pulled the curtain slightly. Outside, the parking lot was half empty. 6 cars spaced across 20 spots. A street lamp flickered near the edge. Its light pulsed every few seconds. Inconsistent. Unreliable. I watched it for a moment, then let the curtain fall back into place. I understood something more clearly now. Jason had not acted suddenly. This had been building for years. 18 years since I met him. 3 years since he started planning. That mattered. That timeline explained the confidence. The tone. The expectation that I would comply. In 2021, he lost his job. I knew that. He told me it was temporary. He said the market shifted. He said opportunities would return. They did not. Instead, the debt grew. $380,000 in failed real estate investments. I had seen the documents once. Briefly. He thought I had not noticed. I always noticed. He did not want just money. That was clear now. He wanted control. Control over the house. Over Emily. Over me. Money was only the tool, not the goal. I had allowed proximity to become authority. That was the mistake. I had corrected it tonight. I walked back to the desk. Opened my suitcase. Inside, everything was organized. 3 folders. 2 changes of clothes. 1 envelope. The envelope contained additional documents. Property titles. Secondary accounts. I placed it on the desk. Opened it carefully. The paper edges aligned perfectly. No creases. No uncertainty. I checked each document again. Not because I needed to. Because I always did. Verification was habit. Not reaction. My phone lit up suddenly. The screen brightened the room slightly. An incoming call. Emily. 9:58 p.m. I let it ring once. Twice. 3 times. Then I answered. I placed the phone to my ear. Dad, she said immediately. Her voice was tight. Controlled. Where are you? I did not answer that directly. Safe, I said. My voice stayed even. That's what matters. There was a pause on her end. 2 seconds. Maybe 3. I could hear something in the background. Movement. Not chaotic. Not calm. Controlled tension. Jason says you emptied the account, she said. The words came out quickly. Practiced. Like she had repeated them before calling. Is that true? I looked at the documents on the desk. The answer was simple. Structural. Yes, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. You can't just do that, she said. Her voice shifted slightly. Less controlled now. More uncertain. It was a joint account. It was, I said. Past tense. Intentional. Silence again. I could hear her breathing now. Slightly uneven. He's saying you took everything, she said. He's saying you're trying to punish us. I stood still. Let the words settle. I understood the framing. I recognized it immediately. This was not about punishment. This was about removal. Removal of access. Removal of assumption. Removal of control. Emily, I said quietly. This is not about punishment. I stopped there. Did not elaborate. She needed to reach the rest on her own. There was another sound behind her. A voice. Faint. Male. I recognized it immediately. Jason. Not the words. Just the tone. Sharp. Urgent. She covered the phone slightly. I could hear the shift in sound. Then she came back. He wants to talk to you, she said. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Not longer. Just enough to confirm my next step. This was the moment where patterns usually repeated. Where confrontation escalated. Where emotion replaced structure. I did not allow that. No, I said. Simple. Clear. Final. Another pause. This one longer. Heavier. Dad. She started. I did not let her finish. Not yet. I needed her to hear this without interruption. I needed the structure to hold. I will speak with you tomorrow, I said. Not tonight. Silence again. Then a small shift in her breathing. Something changed there. Slight. Subtle. But present. I recognized it. The beginning of separation. The first moment where she questioned him instead of me. That mattered more than anything else tonight. I ended the call without waiting for a response. I set the phone back down on the desk. The room returned to silence. The hum of the wall unit filled the space again. Steady. Predictable. I walked to the door. Checked the lock once. Then again. Habit. Structure. Control. I turned off the main light. The room dimmed instantly. Only the bathroom light remained. Soft. Indirect. I sat back on the bed and leaned against the wall. My hands rested flat on my thighs. Still. Grounded. I understood something completely now. This was not the end of something. It was the beginning of clarity. The moment where illusion stopped carrying weight. The moment where structure replaced assumption entirely. I reached over and turned off the bathroom light. The room fell into darkness. Complete. Quiet. Final. Somewhere in that silence, I realized something that changed everything. Emily had not defended him once. The coffee machine hissed softly as I stepped into the diner at 6:42 a.m. The air smelled like bacon grease and fresh toast. Warm. Heavy. Familiar. The booth seat felt cracked under my hand as I slid in. Vinyl worn from years of use. A waitress passed by carrying 3 plates. Eggs. Hash browns. Pancakes stacked high. I placed my phone on the table. Screen dark. Silent. The sunlight outside filtered through the blinds in narrow strips. Bright lines across the table surface. Dust floated slowly through the light. The place was half full. Maybe 12 people inside. Quiet conversations. Low voices. No one looked at me twice. That helped. I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug. Ceramic. Hot. The heat settled into my palms. Grounding. Real. I took a slow sip. It tasted better than last night. Strong. Balanced. I set the cup down carefully. The clock above the counter reads 6:44 a.m. I had slept maybe 3 hours. Enough. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. One of 3. The edges were still perfectly aligned. No creases. No signs of hesitation. I opened it slowly. Inside were printed statements. Transaction confirmations. Trust documentation. I scanned the first page again. Not because I needed to. Because repetition confirmed control. I remembered someone else then. Not Daniel. Not Kevin. Not Jason. Someone from earlier. Linda Carver. 1995. My first senior audit lead. Age 47 at the time. She wore a sharp citrus perfume that filled every room she entered. She once told me during a 14-hour audit shift, control is not what you hold. It is what you remove from others. I did not fully understand it then. I did now. I closed the folder and set it flat on the table. The waitress approached. Mid-40s. Tired eyes, but steady posture. You want something to eat? She asked. Just coffee, I said. She nodded. You sure? She added. You look like you could use real food. I gave a small smile. Maybe later. She paused for a second, studied my face, then nodded again and walked away. I watched her move between tables. Efficient. Focused. No wasted motion. That kind of discipline always stood out to me. I picked up my phone and checked the time again. 6:48 a.m. Still no new notifications. That silence meant something. It meant the system held. It meant Jason had hit a wall he could not push through. That was expected. What I did not know yet was how he would respond next. Panic had a pattern. First confusion, then urgency, then escalation. I needed to be ready for the third stage. I leaned back slightly in the booth. The vinyl creaked under my weight. I looked around the diner again. The hum of conversation blended with the clatter of utensils. Plates hitting tables. Coffee refilling. A steady rhythm. Predictable. Stable. I focused on that rhythm for a moment. It helped organize my thoughts. I understood the situation more clearly now. Jason's leverage was gone. Completely. Financially, he had no access. Legally, he had no standing. Emotionally, he still had Emily. That was the only variable left. The only unstable element. I had to approach that carefully. Not with force. Not with pressure. With clarity. She needed to see the structure herself. I could not impose it. I took another sip of coffee. Slower this time. I considered the timeline again. 18 years since I met him. 3 years of planning. One night to remove everything he thought he controlled. That imbalance would unsettle him. That would push him toward mistakes. I would not rush to respond to those mistakes. I would document them. That was the difference now. I had moved from reaction to observation. That shift mattered more than anything. I placed my hands flat on the table. Still. Grounded. My breathing remained even. My thoughts stayed structured. This was not chaos. It only looked like it from the outside. I reached for the folder again and flipped to the second page. Property records. 2 addresses. Both transferred into the trust 18 months ago. Quietly. Legally. Completely. I had built layers. Not walls. Layers could not be forced open. They had to be understood. He would not understand them in time. I closed the folder again and slid it back into my jacket. The waitress returned and topped off my coffee without asking. On the house, she said quietly. I nodded once. Thank you. She leaned slightly closer, lowered her voice. You look like someone just walked out of something important. I met her eyes briefly. She was not wrong. I said. She studied me for another second, then straightened and walked away. I watched her go. Then I looked back at my phone. The screen lit up suddenly. A new message. Not from Emily. Not from Jason. From an unknown number. No name attached. The preview text displayed clearly across the screen. Short. Direct. Precise. We need to discuss the $380,000 debt Jason Caldwell still owes. Call me immediately. I remembered Thomas Reed. 2012. He sat across from me in a conference room that smelled like dry paper and cheap ink. He had a habit of tapping his ring against the table. Sharp metallic clicks every 5 seconds. He told me once, the truth always leaks through pressure. You just have to be patient. I understood that now as I stepped into the underground parking garage at 7:12 a.m. The air was cooler here, around 58 degrees. Damp. Concrete carried a faint smell of oil and rubber. Tires echoed in the distance as cars moved above. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, uneven, flickering every few seconds. I walked exactly 120 feet toward the far corner. My footsteps echoed against the concrete walls. Measured. Controlled. My phone felt heavier in my hand. The unknown number still sat on the screen. I pressed call. It rang once. Twice. Then connected. A male voice answered immediately. Low. Direct. You got my message, he said. Yes, I replied. My voice stayed even. Who is this? There was a short pause. Less than 2 seconds. Call me Victor, he said. We need to talk about Jason Caldwell. I leaned slightly against the cold concrete pillar. The surface pressed through my jacket. Grounding. I am listening, I said. He exhaled slowly. I could hear traffic in the background. Distant horns. Movement. He owes me $380,000, Victor said. 3 years now. No payments. I closed my eyes for a brief second. The number aligned perfectly with what I had seen. Go on, I said. Another pause. Then his tone shifted. Slightly sharper. I called his phone at 7:05 a.m. He picked up. He didn't know I was recording. I said nothing. That mattered. That was the opening. You should hear what he said, Victor continued. I can play it for you. There was a click. Then a recording started. The sound quality was rough. Slight static. But clear enough. Jason's voice came through immediately. Recognizable. Controlled at first. Then strained. I told you I would cover it, Jason said in the recording. The old man has over 12 million. I just need access. Another voice. Victor's voice. Recorded. You said that 6 months ago, Victor replied. Where is the money? Jason's voice again. Louder now. Less controlled. He is stubborn. But I am close. Emily trusts me. I will move him out within weeks. My hand tightened slightly around the phone. Not visibly. Just enough to register. The recording continued. Victor again. You are out of time. Jason responded quickly. Almost defensive. I am not walking away from this. I did not spend 3 years building this position to lose it now. A short silence. Then Jason again. Lower this time. More focused. Once I control the accounts, I clear the debt. All of it. Then I lock everything down. He will have nothing left to argue with. The recording clicked off abruptly. Silence returned to the line. The garage felt colder suddenly. Or maybe I noticed it more. I opened my eyes slowly. The fluorescent light above me flickered again. Unstable. Temporary. You heard it, Victor said. His voice returned. Direct. No hesitation. He planned this. All of it. I let the words settle. I did not react immediately. That was important. I needed clarity, not impulse. Yes, I said finally. I heard it. There was a shift in Victor's tone, slightly more measured now. So what are you going to do? He asked. I looked down at my phone. The reflection of the overhead light glared across the screen. I could see my own outline faintly. Still, controlled. I am already doing it, I said. Silence followed. 3 seconds. Maybe 4. Then Victor spoke again. He is going to come after you, he said. He has nothing left. I understood that. Completely. That was the final stage. Escalation. Predictable. Manageable. Then he will fail, I said. Simple. Direct. No emphasis needed. I ended the call without waiting for a response. The line went dead instantly. I lowered the phone slowly. My breathing stayed even. My thoughts remained structured. This changed nothing about my plan. It only confirmed it. Jason had revealed everything. Not to me, but enough for me to understand the full scope. Control. That was always the goal. Not survival. Not recovery. Control. I straightened from the pillar and walked toward my car. The sound of my shoes echoed again. Consistent. Measured. The garage remained half empty. No one watching. No one aware. That was how it needed to be. I reached the car and unlocked it. The clicks sounded louder than expected. Sharp. Final. I opened the door and sat down. The interior felt warmer than the garage. Around 68 degrees. Controlled climate. Predictable environment. I placed the phone on the console. Screen dark again. I did not check for new messages. Not yet. I did not need confirmation. I already had it. I understood the full picture now. The timeline. The motive. The method. Jason had built a plan around access. I had removed access completely. That left him with nothing but exposure. I started the engine. The low hum filled the space. Steady. Grounding. I placed both hands on the wheel. My grip firm. Not tense. I considered the next step. Not reaction. Not confrontation. Structure. Legal structure. Final structure. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the last document. The third one. The one I had not used yet. I unfolded it carefully. The paper remained crisp. Untouched. This was the final layer. The one that ensured permanence. I read the first line once. Not twice. Once was enough. Then I picked up the pen from the console. Black ink. Smooth tip. I positioned the document against the steering wheel. The surface stable enough. I signed my name in one continuous motion. No hesitation. No correction. The ink settled into the paper immediately. Final. Irreversible. I capped the pen and placed it back. Then I folded the document once. Precise. Clean. I placed it back into the glove compartment and closed it firmly. The latch clicked into place. Locked. I shifted the car into drive without looking back. The office lobby smelled like polished wood and expensive coffee as I stepped inside at 10:18 a.m. The temperature held steady at 70 degrees. Controlled. Neutral. The marble floor reflected the ceiling lights in sharp lines. Quiet footsteps echoed across the space. I moved past the reception desk without stopping. The elevator doors opened within 5 seconds. I stepped in and pressed 14. The ride was smooth. Silent. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked unchanged. That mattered. I adjusted my jacket slightly. The fabric settled into place. I remembered someone else then. Not Thomas. Not Linda. Not Jason. Someone different. Mark Ellison. 2003. Age 52. He was a client during a restructuring case. His office smelled like cedar and old leather. He told me once. The moment they realize they lost control is the moment they reveal everything else. I carried that with me now. The elevator stopped at 14. The doors opened into a quiet hallway. Soft carpet. Muted lighting. No distractions. I walked exactly 30 feet to the glass door at the end. The name on the panel read Whitaker Legal Group. I pushed it open without hesitation. Inside, the air felt slightly cooler. Around 68 degrees. The scent of paper and ink lingered faintly. A receptionist looked up immediately. Early 20s. Focused. Professional. Good morning, she said. Do you have an appointment? Robert Whitman, I said. 10:15 a.m. She checked her screen quickly. Yes, Mr. Whitman. Mr. Harris is expecting you. She stood and gestured toward a hallway. Second door on the left. I nodded once and moved forward. The carpet absorbed my footsteps completely. No sound. Controlled environment. I reached the door and knocked once. A voice answered immediately. Come in. I opened the door and stepped inside. The office was large, about 300 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows along one wall. Sunlight filtered through partially closed blinds. The desk was clear, organized, no clutter. A man stood behind it, mid-50s, gray suit, calm posture. Mr. Whitman, he said. I am Daniel Harris. He extended his hand. I shook it once. Firm, brief, professional. Thank you for seeing me on short notice, I said. Of course, he replied. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please sit. I did. The leather chair was firm, supportive. I placed my folder on the desk, aligned it carefully. Harris sat down across from me. His eyes moved to the folder immediately. Analytical, focused. I reviewed the summary you sent at 7:58 a.m., he said. 12.4 million in assets. 2 properties. 1 trust structure. He paused briefly. And a son-in-law attempting control. Correct, I said. He leaned back slightly, studied me for a moment. You acted quickly, he said. Less than 12 hours. Preparation reduces time, I replied. He nodded once. It does. He opened the folder and scanned the first page. His movements were precise, efficient, no wasted motion. This transfer was clean, he said. Legally sound, structurally protected. He looked up. But you understand he will not accept this quietly. I do, I said. Harris closed the folder halfway. Has he contacted you directly? No, I said. Only through Emily. He nodded slowly. That will change. I remained still. That was expected. He tapped the folder lightly. Once. Then again. A habit. Not unlike Thomas Reed. Tell me about him, Harris said. How long have you known Jason Caldwell? 18 years, I said. Since 2005. Harris raised an eyebrow slightly. That is a long time. Long enough to see patterns, I replied. He leaned forward slightly. And the debt, he asked. $380,000, I said. Since 2021. Harris exhaled quietly. That explains urgency, he said. And motive. I did not respond. He already understood. Harris closed the folder completely. His posture shifted slightly. More direct now. Mr. Whitman, he said. What exactly do you want from this situation? I held his gaze steadily. Clarity, I said. And separation. He studied me for a moment. Longer than before. Then nodded once. Good, he said. Because anything else complicates the process. I understood that. Completely. Harris stood and walked to the window. Looked out briefly. Then turned back. He will escalate, he said. He will attempt pressure through your daughter. I know, I said. Harris returned to his chair. Sat down slowly. Then we move ahead immediately, he said. We formalize everything today. He reached for a document on his desk. Placed it in front of me. This ensures he cannot challenge the trust, he added. Not now? Not later. I glanced at the document. Clean. Structured. Final. Harris picked up a pen and slid it toward me. Once this is signed, he said, there is no reversal. I looked at the paper. Then at him. Understood, I said. My hand moved toward the pen. The weight felt balanced. Familiar. I positioned the document carefully. The lines were clear. Precise. Harris watched without speaking. The room remained silent except for the faint hum of the building systems. I signed my name in one continuous motion. No hesitation. No correction. I placed the pen down beside the document. Harris nodded once. It is done, he said. He reached for the paper and placed it into a folder. Closed it securely. I stood up slowly. The chair moved back without sound. What happens next? I asked. Harris looked directly at me. His expression did not change. Now, he said. He realizes he is already lost. I held that statement for a moment. Then turned toward the door. My hand reached for the handle. I understood something then that shifted everything. Jason was not the center of this anymore. Emily was. The wind cut across the open rooftop parking lot as I stepped out at 12:26 p.m. The air felt sharper here. Around 63 degrees. Sunlight reflected off the concrete in harsh white lines. Heat and cold mixed in uneven waves. My shoes echoed faintly with each step. The city noise rose from below. Distant horns. Engines. Movement layered over movement. I walked toward the far edge. About 80 feet from the elevator exit. My phone vibrated once in my hand. I did not check it yet. I let the moment stretch. I remembered someone else then. Not Mark. Not Linda. Not Thomas. Someone closer to home. My brother, Andrew Whitman. 1991, age 34. We stood on a dock by Lake Erie. The air smelled like salt and wet wood. He told me, "You can measure people by what they do when they think they are winning." I understood that now more clearly than ever. I reached,